Sergeant Marc Bartlett, United States Army, Vietnam. Marc served in Vietnam 1969-1970 under the 1st Cavalry. He was with Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 8th Cavalry. And he saw a lot of combat, folks, like a lot of my veterans have. He tells his story. This is actually my second interview. I actually interviewed Marc along with Ed Masterson and Terry Willman and Jerry McNally back in 2006 in Phoenix, Arizona. I interviewed Marc July 13, 2006. His wife Sandy was there at the time. Marc was 59, and 17 years later, this last April the 17th, 2024 in Scottsdale, Arizona, I had the privilege and honor of sitting down with Marc for a second interview. So a lot of you watched this first interview. But Marc served as decorated veteran of Vietnam. Among other medals, Marc received the Army Commendation Medal with Valor, 2 Bronze Stars of Valor, the Air Medal, and the Army Combat Infantry Badge. So God bless Marc Bartlett. He's still with us, folks, tells his story through his eyes and ears. Again, a second interview with him, another opportunity for you to learn. We talked about a lot of things. He lost his wife, Sandy. He talks about that at the beginning of the interview. And I know how much he loved her and how much she meant to his life, and he misses her dearly. But I'm so glad that, like I said, we were able to sit down and talk more about Vietnam and what he did in Vietnam, folks. He saw a lot of combat. He worked with the Air Mobile Division, the Huey helicopters, taking them in, dropping them off the combat assaults, hot LZs, and was right there in the thick of it. So, and Vietnam changed him like it changed a lot of these young men, all these years later now. The Vietnam veterans today, sobering thought, are almost the same age as the World War II veterans were when I started my work 21 years ago. I actually started in Arizona. So that's a sobering thought. In 20 years, who's going to tell their story? So the importance of this work. I want to thank Michael and Darlene Sarofsky and Trish Care Hansen again, Hansen Desert Hills in Scottsdale, for sponsoring these stories. We did 8 interviews while I was there in April. Marc was one of them. So I want to thank you guys again for stepping forward and helping me, making it possible to do what I'm doing here. Folks, I don't think a lot of people see what goes into these videos, these stories. You know, you see the end result of a lot of years of labor traveling, and then the production time and all the hours, countless hours of editing. And so you get to see the final product, which is great. But I would invite you to help sponsor or donate to this work, folks, like Michael and Darlene and Trish have. I would really encourage you. There's information in the video description of all my videos right under the video. There's some words. Click the word more. It expands and you can read, see a link to sponsor a story, or in the comment section of my videos. The first comment is always mine. You can click on that link, or you can go to larrycappetto.com and click on the donate link. And I would appreciate you considering that. I'm very thankful. I thank God for all those that have stepped forward to help me with this work. It's definitely a labor of love, folks, and something I want to continue on. So we would encourage you to step forward. I want to let you know also that when I started interviewing all these veterans, I never intended I would ever release the entire story that you're seeing right now. Consequently, the format was different, the questioning, the answers was different. Even the audio setup was different. It wasn't that important for me to have audio on me as long as the veteran could hear, so I didn't have a microphone. Nowadays I have 2 mics, but back then, I was making documentaries, so 60 interviews, 60 hours of footage, edited down to 1 hour, 59 hours was never seen. So when we go back and we bring these stories to you, that's I wanted to explain that because some people don't understand that. So that's the strategy, and that's how I'm a documentary filmmaker. So that's how that works. But now I'm sitting down, 2-person interviews, full interviews with the intent of sharing the full story. So that's the difference. Okay. Folks, I'm grateful I can serve my God and my country through the lens of my camera, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm just so grateful to share these stories and to get them into the hands of our younger generation. Have them download the Voices of History radio app so they can have this in their hands, these stories in their hands, living history in the palm of their hands, folks. So important that we share this with our younger generation. We're in trying times right now. Thomas Paine said years ago, these are times that try men's souls. We are in perilous times, folks, so it's paramount that we get these stories out, we get the truth out, we share the truth. And I tell you what, I tell people I'd rather die a martyr than live a lie. So that's how I feel about my work and my country and my God. So, okay, enough said. Let's honor Marc Bartlett with this second interview. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing to this channel, and sharing these videos. And I'll talk to you next time. God bless you. is good. But you're just going to be focused on me right here. So, let me see here. Can I ask you to take off your glasses?
Oh, sure.
There's a glare, and you didn't have them the first time either. I remember.
I know, and I was wearing glasses back then too.
So you have watched the first interview I did with you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I watched it, and then a couple of members of my family had seen it already, and then they saw it again, and they said, "You should tell your friends and neighbors to look
You've
at
had
this."
thousands of views. Do you ever read the comments? People comment on you.
Oh, I do. I've read
Yeah,
the comments.
okay.
In fact,
There's comments all the time.
There was one recently, it was within the last week, I think, which went on and on and on. And it was from a non-veteran, but it was very complimentary to me. I was surprised.
Yeah, I get some really good comments. I interviewed a man named Brian Bartlett. No relation, I'm sure, but he was a medic. And oh my gosh, Mark, he was very troubled by his experience, but I was thinking about his story too because of the name. But I think I've been real blessed, and I've been very blessed and fortunate to have found so many veterans. People tell me I've got the best job in the world. You know, stuff like, I get comments like that.
Oh no, I can understand that.
You know, Lewis Johnson once called me his hero, and I thought, what? It's hard for me to even comprehend that, but I understand how he's saying it. But it's like, I've had Marines call me, you know, tell me Semper Fi, and I've been an honorary member of the American Legion, VFW, the Royal Canadian Legion in Canada, because I've interviewed veterans in Canada. Even Vietnam veterans, it's kind of odd. They came down here to serve while we were going up there to escape it. It's like, but thousands of Canadians came down and served during Vietnam, so I found that pretty amazing. But I've been on what I call an incredible journey, man. The last 21 years, I tell people I'm serving my God and my country through the lens of my camera. You know, because I was just a little young for Vietnam, came close during the Gulf War, but I had my orders for Fort Jackson. My MOS got all messed up. I was a National Guard, and it never worked out. I was trying for a medical position, and they said I was colorblind. But anyways, I'm not colorblind. I got retested. But anyways, so this is the way I serve my country, you know, and I'm very proud of my work.
You should be.
You know, and so as far as having you there today, we're not going to go through Vietnam necessarily. I'm going to talk about Vietnam, but I want to just focus on, if I can start off at the beginning. I hope this is not inappropriate, but tell me about Sandy and what happened, if you can, and how long she's been gone. And I know she meant everything to you, so just tell me about Sandy.
She was my life. She wasn't feeling well February and March of 2022, and I had family visiting in town. And I had to run all over. Their kids were going to a soccer tournament, so I was driving all over the county trying to get them to their games and get them home. And anyway, after my family left, she went to her physician, and she sent her for a CAT scan. So we went for the CAT scan, same day. And they give you the report as you come out. And my business was medical claims, so I know some medicine. And as we were walking to the car, I read the report, and my heart just went boom. I knew what it said, and it wasn't good. So anyway, we got her to an oncologist, and he just said, this is not treatable, and it's not curable. So the only care we can give you is palliative. It was in the peritoneum. That's the membrane that holds all your organs in, the stomach and the pancreas and the liver and all that. So she decided to do chemo. And she did about 8 or 9, I'm not sure how many treatments. But part of the disease, her disease, the body emitted a liquid called ascites, and it filled her abdomen. And she first went in for surgery because they thought that the cancer was ovarian. So I remember sitting in the outside the operating room, and the guy came out during the procedure and showed me pictures of her ovaries. He says, these are clean as a whistle, but she has cancer. And then we've removed I think it was 1.5 liters of this ascites stuff, just white liquid. Anyway, over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, she continued to go to chemo. I went with her and sat with her and took her home. And then when the chemo was done during the afternoon, then they attach she had a port here, and they attach another bag with more chemo in it, which you have to wear for 3 more days. I mean, it's just ugly. It's just brutal. I mean, for her, it was brutal. And after about the 9th treatment, I ended up having to take her to the hospital because she was not feeling well. They took out another 2.5 liters of this ascites, and they'd taken out more in the interim. And we were laying in the hospital room, and somebody from hospice came by. And at the time, I didn't think about it. Now I think, were you trying to get someone to go into hospice? It didn't seem like, in hindsight, it didn't seem like the right thing to do. Anyway, she decided to do it. She said, I've had enough of this. I don't want to do this laying in bed and feeling lousy. And so I wasn't going to argue with her. It was her life. I loved her dearly. And so we took her home that day. The hospice group, Hospice of the Valley, if you've ever heard of it, it is a great organization. And they brought the bed and the toilets and the walkers, and she was still ambulatory. And she lasted, and that was like the 3rd of November, she lasted till the 30th of December. Yeah. She did not die from the cancer. She starved herself to death. She just wouldn't eat. And I tell you, I know how hard it was for her. It just killed me. Anyway, so she's been gone now for almost 16 months. And the strange thing is, as husbands and wives do, they talk about death. What are you going to do? Trust, wills, all that noise. She was 10 years younger than me. I'm going to be the one that goes first. Hello. And what happens? Life. Life's a bitch, and then you die.
How much younger was she?
10 years.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she was 65 when she died. Oh. She had just applied for Medicare.
Boy. How many kids do you have?
None.
Okay.
None.
Okay.
None that I know of, anyway. Yeah. Not from Sandy, anyway. But so, it was just, when I came back from the war, and I talked about this in my initial interview, I had some issues. Tried to kill my first wife and all that stuff with the trophy. And I never really thought that I would be a good father. I know in hindsight I probably would have been, because I was raised right. I had the morals and scruples that you needed. And then, it wasn't we didn't try, it just didn't happen. And then when I met Sandy, she'd had some of the treatments before, because she couldn't get pregnant with her first husband. And we just said, well, we'll just let luck take over, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And it didn't happen.
How many years were you guys married?
Almost 32. We met in 88 and got married in 91.
Now, was she married before?
Yeah, she was married before. She married her hometown high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And
tell me how you guys met. Tell me about.
Well, we actually had worked at the same office for a while. We were in distant departments, and I didn't even know it except to say hi. And then at a party, 2 years later, mutual friends were all there, and so we met up and we hit it off, and the rest is history. Mm. We had a good marriage. We had a good life. We did, well, as I said in the last interview, we traveled all over. We did so much stuff. And if I'm going to be honest, yeah, it's lonely. It really is lonely. But I don't have any other family, so there's nothing.
Well, I was going to ask you, where's your support system through all this?
Well, I have a sister-in-law in town. Okay. My brother's wife. Okay. But her 93-year-old mother just moved in with her, and she's got a 40-year-old son living with her, and his 11-year-old daughter, so she's pretty busy. So I have a neighbor that if I needed transport for medical procedures or whatever, they would take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have family anywhere else?
Oh, I have a couple of cousins back in New England.
Okay.
But other than that, no, that's it.
Wow.
We had a small, traditional New England family. We didn't have 18 kids, and just me and my brother.
I don't remember our first interview, everything about it, but I wanted to ask you, have you had any association with Vietnam veterans, groups, organizations over all these years?
The short answer is no, but I have. In fact, somebody just tried to get me to go to the American Legion downtown Gilbert. This is not long ago, it's been 3 years now, because Sandy was still alive at the time. So he took us out to this fancy dinner, and then we went to the American Legion. And we went into the bar and sat down. And you know American Legions. I mean, people have been smoking in those places for 100 years. Now, I used to smoke. I smoked for 45 years, so I have no compulsion against smokers. But you know how the smell gets into everything. It gets into the walls, gets into the furniture, gets into the carpet. And I just said, I can't do this. I cannot do this. But back in early 1980s, I was living in southern Ohio, about an hour south of Columbus. I did get involved briefly with I don't even know what you would call it, a self-help kind of a group. Not where we would sit around and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but guys would sit around, they'd have a drink if they wanted to, or smoke a cigarette if they wanted to, and just kind of talk about, kind of like this, but veteran to veteran, you know, they get a little more detailed and nuanced about what they saw and did. And then I left and I moved again, so that ended.
I'm going to ask you a question. When you came, okay, tell me, let's go back to Vietnam for a minute. Tell me about your last day in Vietnam. What do you remember, and then coming home, and how you were received when you came home? If you can remember your last day.
Well,
I mean, you get your short-term deroast, right? I mean, your calendar, your call.
oh, I had my little, I still have it on a scrapbook at home, yeah, Snoopy the dog. And the thing I remember more than my last day was my last day in the field. And that wasn't too long after our first incursion into Cambodia. And my first sergeant came up to me. We were getting logged, you know, ammo and mortar and mail and stuff. And he just came up to me out of the blue and he said, "Hey Bartlett, get your stuff and get on the bird." I had about 2.5 weeks left before I deroasted. I said, "What?" I had saved his life about 3 months before. And he felt he owed me something. He says, "Look, you've done your time. You've done more than most guys have. Get the hell out of here. If you've got enough money in your wallet, go on a 7-day leave, whatever. Just find some place to hide away in the rear for a couple of weeks." And I remember walking to that bird and getting on it. And I took a whole bunch of pictures as I was leaving of guys that I served with. And the feeling was just euphoric. That's what it was. It was just euphoric. My last day, I don't remember, because I went back and they didn't have anything for me to do. What are they going to do with a grizzled old veteran, combat veteran? So the first sergeant back said, "If you got enough money, go to Tonson and get on a bird and go somewhere." Well, you had to have, I'm not sure I'm right about this, but $600 I think in your wallet to leave. So I checked my wallet and I had like $100. So you didn't need a lot of money in the jungle. So I said, okay, I can fix this. So I found a poker game, and by the end of that night, I had $750 in my wallet. So I said to Top, I said, "I'm going somewhere. I'll just go down here and see where I can catch a flight to." And I did, and I caught a flight actually with 2 buddies of mine, a guy from Nashville and a guy from Brooklyn, when we went to Sydney, which everybody wanted to go to Sydney, of course, because they spoke English, but it was the easiest place to go, shortest flight. So we did that. And we walked into the hotel, we got registered, and we sat down, even still had our luggage with us. We sat down to have a beer or a drink. And all of a sudden, this guy walks into the bar, soul brother. And he looks at us and he says, "You guys, GIs?" And we went in unison, "Yeah, we are." He says, "Let me buy you a drink." So he bought us a drink. And then he bought us another drink. And then he bought us another drink. And by the time, it's like 2 o'clock, by the time 5 o'clock rolled around, we were pretty wasted. And it turned out to be Lou Rawls. And he was performing, so he gave us tickets, and so we went home.
The guy with the low voice.
The guy with a deep basso, yes. Great guy. And gave us tickets, and we went and saw the show, and we spent 7 days there. Got acclimated to society, got at least where English was spoken. They're still driving the wrong side of the road, but we got to see girls in mini skirts, and you know. Went back, and I think the one thing I remember about the last day is the same thing that I remember when I first came in, and I think I said in the first interview, it was so hot. It was in July, so it was just brutally hot. Even though that's their winter, it's still hot and humid. But getting on the plane and kind of going, even though I don't believe in God, I've been an atheist since I was 10, going like this and saying, "Please don't let them hit us with a mortar." And once you're free and clear, and you just go, kind of grunt like we talked about before. Interesting story is that we flew to, I think we flew to Guam and then Wake and maybe Tokyo and then long way to get, and then to Honolulu. So we stopped, crew change, reload, refill the gas tanks, get back in, take off, and we weren't even at 5,000 feet. And you could hit a squelch on the speaker when the captain comes on and says, "Ladies and gentlemen," there were ladies on, there were stewardesses actually, and it was a commercial flight. I forgot to inform you that we just lost engines 3 and 4. So here's 200 guys saying, "Oh my God, we survived 365 days and we're going to die in a plane crash." Well, obviously we didn't. So they jettisoned all the fuel they had, 50,000 gallons or whatever it was, took us back. And we got a free night in Honolulu. The next day, boom, we went back and landed at Travis Air Force Base in Oakland.
And how was the homecoming in Travis?
Well, you didn't see anybody. All you saw was military personnel. Because the process of de-rossing out it's bureaucratic nonsense. First they give you the, "Well, you want to re-up speech?" And I said, "Yeah, right, sure." And then you go through all the medical checks. Eyes, nose, ear, dental, the whole heart, the whole thing. And then more talks about, "You sure you don't want to re-up?" And then talks about your insurance and all that bureaucratic nonsense. It took about 24 hours to get out of there. So I finally was given my, what's that form called?
DD-214?
DD-214. And said, "There you go. You can put your civvies on if you want," which I did. And go out to the gate, and my fiance at the time happened to be living in San Francisco, so she was able to pick me up. So we moved from there. 2 weeks later, we were married. Wow. Didn't last, but didn't last because I never talked about this the last time, but I didn't want to bring it up when Sandy was here. It didn't last because I never realized how screwed up I was. I mean, I wasn't blah, blah, blah like that, like some of the guys that you've talked to, I'm sure. But I was so cold and so unemotional and so unwilling to just sit down and stay at home and be a good husband. So 10 years after the fact, I left her. And this sounds like it's crazy, but I left her because I wasn't doing her any good. She was a good woman, and she treated me as well as anybody could. But I didn't treat her that. I didn't touch her. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just didn't pay enough attention to her. So I left. And then I finally, I think, figured out what was going on with me. And I had another marriage in between, which was another mistake. She was a psycho. And then I met Sandy, and my life changed for the good, for the better, and it hasn't been perfect ever since.
I don't remember how much we talked about PTSD, but do you suffer from post-traumatic stress?
I don't think I do. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but if I was self-diagnosing myself, I would say I don't.
How about back when you came home, you said you were...
Well, I told you the story about, and we were in bed, my wife and I were in bed, and I had these athletic trophies on top of the headboard, baseball trophies, football, hockey. And I woke up, I mean, she woke up, thank goodness. I woke up, and I had the trophy in my hand. The base part of it was at the top, the marble part. And it seemed like I was getting ready to hit her in the skull. Thank God she woke up. The next day, those trophies went in the closet, and we put stuffed bears up on top of the headboard. But that never happened again. I mean, that was the first and only time it ever happened. And as I said before in the initial interview, I still do have nightmares. Not as often as I used to, but I mean, they're still there. They're usually the same kind of scenarios, but it's not anything that debilitates me. I don't sleep good, but I'm pretty sure that may be missing Sandy more than whatever happened in Nam.
Mm-hmm. Did you and Sandy talk about Vietnam during your marriage?
Well, again, as you remember, during the initial interview, when we started talking about some of the more dicier situations in combat, I looked over at her and said, "No, don't cry," because we had never talked about it. Mm-hmm. After the interview, we did talk some, but she never asked, never. And it wasn't because she didn't want to know. I think she just didn't want to make me have to go through that again, which was not a big deal. And I can sit here and talk about it. It's not that big of a deal. I never did consider it that big of a deal, but she thought I suffered more than I did.
Mm-hmm. Did you come to the premiere that we did of the Vietnam film?
You sat me in the front row.
Yeah, these guys sponsored it. That's right, you were there. So, Sandy was there, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
sure.
Okay, I got pictures from all this, okay. That to me was a tremendous event. We had a lot of veterans that I've interviewed across the country that were here, but does Vietnam have a place in your life anymore, or is it just like something you did a long time ago?
Well, again, I'm probably going to repeat a lot of what I said in the first interview. Actually, I think I said I didn't think much about it. During my career, I put it in a box or a crate.
I kind of meant like now, you know.
And I'm saying now, okay. I think more about it, and I think I've thought about this and thought it's probably because I have more free time on my hands now. Now with Sandy's gone, I really have a lot of free time on my hands, and I'm not one that's going to just sit there and turn the boob tube on and stare at it mindlessly. That's why I watched a lot of sports. But so I do think about it more. But I think you also can tell by the comments that people have left on my interview that they knew that I had thought about it and tried to put it in a place where it fit in my life. And as I said before in the interview, it made me, this sounds hokey, it made me the man I was, that I am now. I honestly never told a lie in my life, and got me in a lot of trouble at work and places. But that was the kind of the thing that I came home with. Just be yourself, be honest. Don't get involved in all this claptrap that goes on. It's much different now because of social media, but.
Did you have siblings, brothers, sisters?
Brother.
Okay, and he's no longer around?
No, he was 3 years younger than me, and he was diagnosed with diabetes 1 when he was 15. So you knew what was going to happen. He actually outlived the actuaries. He lived to be 70. Passed away 4.5 years ago. But he never served, obviously.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question. I think I've asked this before, but do you sense your mortality? I mean, like this is temporal, someday you're not going to be here. I mean, are you sensing that more as you get older, or is it, I guess the contrast to that would be, my question to the military veterans I've interviewed is, did you ever feel like you were invincible during Vietnam, World War II, Korea? Some of them said yes, some of them said no, but is there an invincibility about life even now, or was there back then for you?
Well, start back then. I don't think invincibility is the right word. When you first got there as an FNG, the fear was there, but you quickly lost that as you learned how to survive. And you learned from the guys that had been there a long time, and if you were smart, you learned yourself how to get through certain situations. I don't think I ever developed a feeling of invincibility. I developed a feeling that I was a fairly competent soldier. I mean, I was a squad leader for 6 months. I led a lot of guys. I ran a platoon for a while. And most non-coms didn't do that. But I never felt that there wasn't an AK round waiting for me out there. You always knew that the chance existed, because you know how combat is. Well, you don't, but you know by now how to talk to so many people. It happens just like that. Not always, but particularly in ambushes. So I never really felt like I had the Kevlar vest on from head to toe and that it was going to protect me. Now, in my later years, given what just happened with my wife, I mean, I certainly understand mortality. I mean, I'm 77. I have issues with my legs. But I actually feel pretty good. I don't really have any symptoms of anything. I didn't have any symptoms of my legs. And as some of my friends and acquaintances tell me, you don't look 77, you look 57. I think, well, thank you. And then some of them say, and you act 17 sometimes. So I don't lay at home worrying about, am I gonna croak tomorrow? I mean, like, my heart's in good health, my lungs are in good health, so it's just a question now of surviving as long as I can. And I mean, I live a fairly active life. Like I say, I walk 2 miles every day because of doctor's orders. And in the summer, I do a 2-mile walk, and then I come home and I swim 40 laps in the pool. So I still have a little bit of a paunch, but most of us at this age have that, given how much beer we consumed. But no, I don't worry about death. I mean, being alone now, you just kind of know if something happens when I'm home and alone, be it a stroke or a heart attack or a fall in a shower or whatever, there's not much I'm going to be able to do about it if I can't get to my phone. And I've learned to live with it. It's kind of like learning to live with the chance that you may not come home from combat. But whenever you went over there, most guys, I think, will tell you that at least looked at life realistically. I may not come home. And I did.
I got to ask you, you said you were an atheist since you were 10. Did that come from your parents, or what do you think?
No. We were not a religious family. My mother was a Christian Scientist. My dad was a Congregationalist, which is kind of a middle-of-the-road Protestant sect. I went to Sunday school like a good little kid when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. My mom took me to church up until I was maybe 12 or 13. And as you probably figured out from these interviews, I'm a pragmatic, objective, rational person. And I just never could see the rationality in God. So I remember telling my mom one day, I think I was 13, we went to church and we were on the way home, and I said, I'm not going anymore. I just don't buy this stuff. And believe it or not, they didn't argue. Again, we were not a close religious family. We went to church on Easter and Christmas, and that was about it. I mean, we went Sundays, but after that was over, it was over.
But do you ever think about afterlife, life after death? I mean, do you ever think about things like that?
No. I'm sorry to be so. No, it just doesn't exist for me. I'm one of those people. I don't know if you've ever read any books by Richard Dawkins. He's a nuclear physicist, astrophysicist, who has written, I don't know, half a dozen books arguing against the existence of God. And some of the most compelling reading I've ever done. Now, maybe because I went into it as an atheist, but I mean, he lays out a very good, if you want to expand your mind a little bit, check him out. But I'm sorry to sound this way, but I'm just, people,
you don't need to apologize.
People are surprised when they say that. Well, there are no atheists in foxholes. Baloney. The guy in the foxhole next to me is saying, pass me more ammo, will you please? I mean, it's not a question of, oh God, please get me out of here. No, that was not me. Yeah, it just has never been.
I can see why, you feel like that, or others, but I interviewed a World War II veteran years ago. I have very few submarine stories, but this guy was a commander of a submarine, the USS Pollock, in World War II, and they did 8 war patrols. A war patrol, I found, is 2 months at a time, 2 months duration, so he did 8 of these. But I saw a movie called U-571, I think, a while back, and the most intriguing and powerful part of the movie is when the depth charges are released from the destroyers or whatever. And he made the comment, there's no atheists in the foxhole. He goes, well, there's no atheists when the depth charges are coming in and around you. So anyways, it's an interesting study for me, the spiritual side of combat too, because I've interviewed chaplains, Catholic priests,
oh, I'm sure.
The corpsmen, the medics. How do they die in the battlefield? So that's been an interesting study for me. One of my most amazing interviews was with a Catholic priest who was at Iwo Jima with the 5th Marine Division, World War II, Father Bradley. But so just as I'm asking these questions, I'm curious, I guess, because I grew up, learned about Jesus, and that's been it. I don't remember a time where I didn't know about the Lord. So, but I can see through life, through things in my life and others, that, you could question the existence of a God or a loving God. Why does a loving God allow this to happen, and all these questions?
Sure.
But I find it intriguing kind of that you don't think about, well, if you drop dead, do you think that's end of your consciousness, or there's a spirit in you that's going to live forever?
No, I'm going to go to the crematorium, they're going to burn me up, and they're going to put me in an urn, and they're going to spread my ashes along the sandies somewhere out in the desert, which is what we asked for. I don't mean to sound cruel, but that's just the way I think.
No, and that's, and I just, to me, it's interesting. I'm glad you're talking with me openly, because it's a study, I guess. I'm interested in learning, so, but, I don't remember everything I asked you in the first interview. Forgive me, I've heard 1,000 stories, so I can't remember every bit. And I did freshen up but you were with the first Cav.
Like,
was that the Air Cavalry?
Yes.
Just the first Cav, okay.
I think it's called the 1st Cavalry Division, but it was nicknamed the Air Cavalry because we moved in choppers.
Yeah, exactly. So the helicopter warfare that was going on. In combat, you said you were a squad leader, and you were a platoon leader at one time too?
Because we lost a first lieutenant, yeah.
Okay. Is there one thing or one skirmish, battle, firefight that stands out in your mind more than others, or is it kind of just part of the whole thing?
Well, no, I shouldn't say you, but I still remember specific battles. I remember the first enemy soldier I killed. I remember the first enemy soldier I saw. I remember the first enemy soldier that we had to kill. We had been sent out to help a platoon that had been ambushed, kind of an L-shaped ambush. So after the skirmish was over, and we're policing up the area, I heard this. So we started searching through the jungle, and here was an NVA soldier, and he had a sucking chest wound. He wasn't going to make it. And I was only in country for 2 months, maybe. It wasn't my first firefight, but and he ordered me to shoot him. And I did. A direct order. He wasn't going to live. That's how I kind of compensated for myself in my own mind. But those are the kinds of things. I remember friends of mine being killed. I remember a battle in north of Quan Loy. We were carrying motor equipment at the time. We were set up in a field, which is not always the smartest thing to do, but we were getting logged in for mail and ammo and stuff. Anyway, we got hit big time. RPGs, everything, recoilless rifles. So my mortar team was in a B-52 crater. So we were fairly safe unless a grenade landed in there. And so we were firing off mortar rounds to try to back up the enemy who was pushing us in. And the combat was just about over. And claymores went off. The enemy had turned the claymores around, which was one of their favorite tricks, and then started making noise. And somebody hit the detonator. Obviously, they shouldn't have. Anyway, two of my best friends caught it right in the gut. So they were lugged into the crater that I was in, because it was the safest place to be. At least you were below ground, because there was still some fighting going on. And I remember sitting there, and I never forget this guy's name. His name was Charlie Cook. He was from Texas. He was kind of a new guy too. But we hit it off fairly quickly. And I remember sitting there holding his intestines in, even though I knew he was not going to make it. And his buddy and a buddy of ours named Timmy Valadez had the same injury. You know what well, you don't know what claymore mines can do, but if you're up close, they can just tear you apart. And we sat there, and myself and my motor crew, and we sat there and we held it in, hoping that the choppers would get in, the medevacs would get in to take them out. They didn't make it. So those are the kinds of things. And I remember other specific battles, but those gruesome kinds of things, for obvious reasons, tend to stick with you more than just little firefight for 10 minutes and then it's over.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember. Did you ever go back to the Vietnam Wall?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years after it was finished. We talked about this, I think, on the initial thing. Yeah. And I said it was probably the first time I ever shed a tear. Because I looked for the names of guys I knew, those two guys, Valadez and Cook, and some other guys, friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And then I was back, because we lived in Richmond, Virginia for about 3 years, early 2000s. So we were only an hour and a half away, and friends and family would come, and so they'd, we want to go to D.C., we want to go to the mall, and go to the Smithsonian and all that noise. So we would always stop there and see and it always got to me, because I always thought it was the perfect representation of what we needed, albeit much different than the stuff that was on the mall already.
I apologize, I don't remember exactly what I asked you the first time, but I usually have in my mind, I walk, you guys are my eyes and my ears to a doorway of the past. That's how I say it, with all the stories I've heard. For some reason, the Vietnam stories on my YouTube channel are the most popular ones. The Vietnam film that you're a part of has had almost 3.5 million views.
Really?
And so there's something about the Vietnam war that really has captured the hearts. I mean, I'll put a World War II interview on there, and people watch it, but not like you would think for a World War II story. But I wonder why that is. I'm sure there's still a lot of pride with you being a Vietnam veteran. Do you wear a hat? Do you do anything like that?
Oh, I wear a hat frequently now. It's to hide my bald spot more than anything else. And the gray hair, the salt and pepper hair, although there's more salt than pepper. Mm-hmm. But again, we talked about this before. I don't wear my medals. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Sandy a couple of years into our marriage, she was doing spring cleaning or something, and she was in a closet mucking around, and she brought out this old briefcase that I had used to come home with in Nam. Put my DD-214 and all my discharge notes and medical stuff. And I also had in there photographs and my medals. And so she did bring them to me and ask me, what is all this stuff? And I told her. And so she went to a Hobby Lobby and had it put the medals, my sharpshooter, expert sharpshooter medal, my CIB, a lighter that I used to carry, a watch that I used to wear. So they're all on my wall in a shadow box, so that's why I don't wear them. So, but I do wear hats once in a while.
So do you ever get a Bronze Star or Silver Star?
I got the typical service medals for serving in Nam. And I got the Commendation Medal with a V device. That was for
Valor?
Yeah, I think that was maybe an honor that was bestowed upon either the platoon or the company. I don't think that was an individual honor. I'm 77, I don't remember, frankly. And I got an air medal for 25 combat assaults and 2 Bronze Stars. I know you're going to want to ask me what did I do to get those Bronze Stars.
You first said you didn't get a Bronze Star. You got 2 Bronze Stars?
No, I don't think I ever said that. I got 2 Bronze Stars.
Well, tell me.
The first one was we were right on the Cambodian border, and we were traversing through the jungle, and there was this wide open space, almost looked like a place you could have a housing development, full of elephant grass about this tall, just razor sharp, just brutal stuff. So we were along the edge, the perimeter of the jungle and the grass, and I was in the 3rd squad back. So it was 1st squad, 2nd squad, 3rd squad. And at the time I was carrying an M60 machine gun. So we got ambushed, bad ambush, big enemy force. And I think they got the point man, they got the squad leader in the 1st squad, and they got the machine gun. And you needed a machine gun to lay down suppressive fire. So word came back off the radio to what was going on. And in that kind of a scenario, the difference between the 1st squad and the 3rd squad was probably 100 yards, because you don't walk arm in arm with it when you're in combat. So I said to my guy that carried my ammo for me, let's go. So we picked up and we ran, kind of zigzagging between the jungle and the elephant grass to get up, not all the way to the front because there were still guys fighting up there, but to get where we could put the gun in a place where we could lay down fire and kind of keep the enemy in control. The other one, we had another ambush. Most of these things were ambushes. And in fact, a good buddy of mine was hit right in the thigh. And he was laying kind of in an open area. But he was the point, so he was the first guy. So I just took it upon myself to go get him. That's all. I just went up and got him. A couple of guys came with me. They also got bronze medals. And we managed to get him back to safety. And he made it. We got him back on a medevac. And I think he went home 2 days later. That's the kind of stuff you did.
Tell me what your rank was when you got out of Vietnam.
Sergeant, E5.
You were sergeant, okay.
Yeah, I was a PFC, went on over, and I was promoted to Spec 4, I think they called it, pretty soon after I got there. And it was around before Christmas. They decided to send me to I think it was called Combat Leadership School. It was a week back in Benoit, the home of the Cav. I went through the training, and because I went through the training, boom, you're a sergeant now. And so I went back to my unit and immediately took over a squad.
Are there sights, sounds, and smells today that remind you of Vietnam?
Well, when you see helicopters in the air and news choppers and traffic reporters, those kind of things, and even some of the Army helicopters, yeah, they're not the same helicopter, they're not Hueys, UH whatevers, but they still sound the same and they pretty much look the same. So yeah, I hear that. And yes, every once in a while, when a car backfires or somebody fires a rifle or a shotgun, hey, we're in Arizona, that happens even in neighborhoods now. Yeah, I don't hit the floor like I used to, but briefly.
Do you shoot? Do you have a gun? Do you do any shooting at all?
I have a shotgun. I have an old rifle my dad had. Pellet guns, but
yeah, okay.
No, I was never. I said before, I was never a gun guy. I never did much hunting when I was a kid. I never hunted after I came home. But I was good with a rifle. I could hit a target from a long way. They wanted me to go to sniper school, but I said, "You think I'm going to sit on a goddamn in a tree all day and be as much of a target as somebody else? No, thank you."
So that didn't interest you? I've interviewed some snipers from Vietnam.
Oh, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, they were good shots too.
Well, yeah, you didn't get to be a sniper by not being able to hit the target.
I wonder if that's a skill or a gift to be able to shoot that far.
Well, I don't know, because again, I was familiar with guns because I had been with my dad and gone hunting, which I didn't shoot anything. So I knew how they worked and what the functionality was. But it just, one of those things that I still remember the first day of basic training when we went to the first day of target practice with learning how to shoot your M. This is how you learn how to shoot your M16, first grade. And right away, I just had it. I just had it. Now, I couldn't say the same thing for a 45. I wouldn't be able to hit that door from here, I don't think, and it's only 20 feet away.
Yeah. That's amazing. Did you ever see that movie, American Sniper?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's a powerful movie, that true story. But yeah, that's wonderful. Wow. I've had a couple other thoughts here as we're going. We're almost done, but I just wanted to sit down with you today and just see where you're at today in your life and what you're doing. It's been 18 years since I saw you. Well, not since I saw you, but since I interviewed you, 2006, and you recall your first interview, so that's good.
I do.
Yeah.
It was
a good interview.
Cathartic for me, in a way. Well, we talked about that. Just something I thought I needed to do, and I do think it helped me in those 18 years since. This, I don't think it'll help me much because I don't have anybody around me anymore that means anything to me.
Yeah, well...
That sounds cruel too, I know, but how cold it is.
So what do you do in your spare time? Do you have hobbies, sports? I mean...
Well, I used to be an athlete. I mean, I played football, baseball, and hockey all through high school, and then football and baseball in college. And then after the fact, I played in hockey leagues and softball leagues and baseball leagues. But at my age now, I used to play a lot of competitive tennis too, back in the 80s. I still beat the tennis ball around a little bit, but again, with my legs, I can't compete with anybody because I can't move fast enough. I don't have a lot of hobbies. I mean, I invest my fortune and I work on my portfolio fairly frequently. I read a lot. I'm a voracious reader. Spend a lot of time outside. I have a vegetable garden, 2 4x8 plots. And I grew up on a farm, so it kind of comes natural. And I swim in the pool, starting pretty soon, hopefully. If we get to the 100-degree mark, maybe I'll get in the pool for real this week. I've been in it, but not to swim.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of sports on TV.
Okay. Does the heat bother you?
No. No. Like I say, when I first moved here, I immediately took to it, and I could play golf or tennis at 110, 120 degrees.
Really?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Vietnam?
No, I don't think it comes from Vietnam. I think it just, I don't know, frankly.
Can't be
What,
New
it's a
England.
biological thing or what?
It can't be New England.
Oh no, I mean, I lived a big part of my life in New England, and then the last 4 years of my career I lived in central Wisconsin, where, you know, from December through February, it was 20 below zero every morning. So it took me as long to get dressed to walk the dog as it did to walk the dog.
You know what I ask at the end of my interviews. I'm going to ask you again if that's okay with you. But
Salute.
yeah, when I tell you, but if that's okay, that's kind of become my trademark over the years, my signature. And I'll tell you what, if there's one comment I get more than any, it's how moved to tears people are when they see those salutes.
Oh no, I can believe
And
it.
I don't know how or why I started doing it. I don't do it with the Iraq or Afghanistan veterans just because they're younger, and I don't think they would understand the significance of what I'm asking. But with the older veterans now, I still do that. So I'm gonna just look right into the camera, Mark, when you're ready, and just give me one of your salutes, or if you want to say something.
I've said enough.
You did
I've
good.
said my piece.
You did good. I didn't do this in our first interview. I want to shake your hand. Thank you for your service during Vietnam.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
You're
for your
welcome.
story and being here today again. And it's just like deja vu for me, but it's more than that. I really appreciate you. And
Appreciate what you do. This is
important.
Yeah, it is. I'm not going to say it's necessary, but you can tell from the comments on all of the videos, and I've watched a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It really does impact some people. I mean,
It does.
Really, really does.
And I'm glad you're reading those and taking time. Because
Oh yeah, again, I don't spend all day on there.
No.
But some of the, like I said, this newest comment on mine really got me thinking. And the guy said, well, you can go look at it.
Yeah, I will. I probably have read it because I have to approve them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. When the comments come in, I have to approve them.
Okay, well then you've seen
Make
it.
sure nobody's saying something stupid. Sometimes I'll get a couple of things they hate the interviewer, they like the interview, but they hate me. You know, I just.
Well, there were a few where they
delete
said
those.
the music sucks, or
Wow.
why does the interviewer always interrupt when they're trying to tell a combat story? Just let the guy tell his story. And I'm thinking, these people don't know anything about interviewing, they don't know anything about movies. Plus, they probably never served.
Everybody's got a critic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But,
All right.
do me a favor, give me a smile this time.